Hi and welcome to your Cope Ahead video. So, coping ahead is nothing but figuring out what situations are likely to cause trouble for you, and not only planning ahead as to how you will cope with these difficulties, but also to imagine yourself coping with them effectively. You might be wondering as to why do I need to cope ahead and why is this skill that is relevant. So I want to give you a research evidence for this bit, that there is a whole lot of research that is showing us now that we can learn new skills and new ways of effective behaviors only by imagining and practicing these skillful behaviors in our minds. And this holds true of a whole bunch of skills, from sports to even interpersonal skills, or to emotion regulation skills, to these therapy skills that we are learning today. And it turns out that imagining an activity tends to fire the same neural centers that are firing when you are practicing the skill in person. And that is probably the reason as to why it's that effective, and it tends to be very helpful to cope ahead. And not only does this help us planning with emotionally provocative situations, but it also tends to increase the likelihood that we may automatically respond to these situations in the way that we have already practiced in our head. Cope ahead is useful in many types of emotional situations, and for example, in a situation that is coming up where you may feel that you will be afraid, you could use this skill. Or if you feel in a situation where you're not sure of how you're going to react, you feel that you may have a reaction, you may have an outburst, you could use a skill to cope ahead in advance before getting into those situations. Or when you may have difficult urges like to run away, to hit someone, or to say yes to using alcohol or drugs or anything that you're trying to quit or get away from. So this can again get in the way of your skillful behavior. So what you could do is, in these situations also, you could practice cope ahead and the skill can be used. So how do we cope ahead? So there are several steps which we can follow to practice this. So first thing you can do is describe a problem situation. You can start by describing a situation about which you're worried, or something that's currently on your mind and you're not sure how you're going to sort of tackle that. So you could start with describing that. Once you have described the situation, you check the facts and be sure that the problem that you're perceiving in this situation is something that actually can occur. And once you're sure of that, then start with naming the emotions and the urges that are likely to sort of interfere with you using and being able to use more skillful sort of behavior. And once you have done that, it will bring us to the next step, where we decide what skills are we going to use in this situation. So you decide what coping skills or problem solving skills you want to use, and be specific of these skills. You could even use your handout and write them down in detail. And you may need problem solving skills to even figure out how to cope effectively in that situation. So once that is done, then imagine the situation. So imagine it in your mind as vividly as possible, and be sure that you will imagine yourself as well in that situation. And you don't imagine a spectator's perspective. Don't imagine yourself watching it. Imagine yourself being in there. Okay, this is important. And also be sure to imagine the situation happening in the present tense and not in the future tense or in the past tense. So once that is done, then rehearse in your mind coping effectively. So rehearse in your mind exactly what you would do to cope effectively, including rehearsing your actions, your thoughts, what you can say, how you will say it. You can imagine yourself doing and coping effectively also. Okay, so rehearse coping with any new problems that come up, and coping with your most feared catastrophe as well in this step. And once that is done, you can practice relaxation. You can take in 5 to 7 slow breaths so that you can calm down. Once you're done imagining in your mind, yourself coping effectively with all of these situations.